Hi guys, welcome back to the Improvement Season podcast. It is me, Steve Hall, and on the other end, Pascal Floor in the Revive Stronger vest, which is no longer available, but you can get our new merchandise
absolutely
on the website.
Yes.
And I don't know if you have this, Pascal. This is just a random thought that sprung in my mind. But I think I basically can't wear t-shirts to the gym anymore because unless they're oversized, they go under my armpit and I sweat on them. And then I get a stench in those armpits that just doesn't ever go.
Funny, Steve, that you're bringing it up because Katie was just here today wearing an old shirt of mine. What is it called again? Lumberjack shirt. I love that kind of style. I can't wear them anymore simply because they don't really fit that well for me anymore. On the surrounding the chest and the upper back, it sits very, very tight. Because of the tightness, though, it really kind of, how should I put it? It eats its way into the armpits, stays there, causes a lot of sweating, and that one really takes over the entire shirt. And I can't wear those anymore because I immediately start to smell badly. And that's why Katie can have them now. She wears them, and of course, my sweat doesn't really come out. It's hidden somewhere in the fabric.
That's what I put my t-shirt in the wash, I smell it, and I'm like, it smells fine. I wear it to the gym, and it just immediately starts stinking.
Exactly.
And I'm like, I
it's
stink.
kind of hidden somewhere in the fabric, you know, just coming out if it really feels attacked or something like this.
Now I need to know if anyone has Lululemon t-shirts. They have like some technology in them which is meant to be like anti-stink, and I want to know if people have that and they've experienced it and it doesn't stink. Because if it doesn't, then I will invest in actually those because they might be worth the cost.
One of those things where it's worth spending maybe a lot of money for it, because if you then have that and it's all right, you can probably wear it up until the point where it's actually then destroyed.
Exactly. Yeah. But I'm either doing that or I'm just wearing vests or oversized t-shirts. Actually, oversized t-shirts work really well because
I'm wearing always vests. But the thing is, sometimes I feel a little bit douchey when the vest is actually cut out too much. And you can start to see a little bit of my love handles when I'm just walking around.
That's, when you make your own and you're like, oh shit, I cut that a little bit too deep.
Exactly.
This is when you're in a dieting phase or actually in prep and then you're really lean, then it's like...
That's amazing.
Then it's also a bit douchey because you're like showing off your leanness.
Yeah, but I think it's then a little bit... Yeah, I mean, you can then always make the argument of like, yeah, it's justified. You can wear that. It's the same as, I don't really want to offend people.
You're going to say something inappropriate. I know it's coming.
But it's mostly kind of, sorry guys, sorry. I may be an asshole if you listen to that and it's you or you know someone or you feel like it's judgmental. Yes, absolutely, it may be. Totally. Now it's out of the way, I will just say it. Often it's kind of fat chicks in the gym wearing very inappropriately tight kind of, I don't know, Gymshark stuff where it's a little bit of a cupcake. And to be fair, sometimes men have that as well, right? And men, to be honest, I can criticize male gym wear as well, like we just did, where just the tank top isn't even a tank top anymore. But often it's like, I hate to break it to you, but you don't look like that Gymshark model on Instagram. You're squeezing yourself into something that isn't really made for you, you know? That's the way that I'm trying to still be politically correct here, but I'm probably not capable of doing so.
It's your opinion, so I think you can stand by that. But it's similar to, like, guys often get criticized. I don't know if you wear them anymore, those Reebok CrossFit, like tight, like they're basically tights, but shorts. Yeah. So I haven't worn those in ages, but I used to wear like tights to the gym, like girls, like you said, the leggings, wear those to the gym, no shorts over the top, so you can see the package, and that got a lot of criticism as well.
Steve, funny that you bring it up because
fairly rightfully in some sense.
I haven't talked about it since such a long time, and yet here at the end of the last week, when I was in Vienna getting a new tattoo, my tattoo artist, his girlfriend, she's into kind of fitness. She's a fitness influencer, actually. And she was there already kind of back when I got my back tattoo.
Get a hookup. She's going to help us explode.
Yeah,
You're going to coach her.
I don't know if she's kind of that type of audience. She's kind of also I don't know, a sponsor, whether she's a sponsored athlete, I don't know, or maybe just an affiliate, but for a bigger company in Germany as well. She is being sponsored by certain fitness brands, clothing wear. And funny enough, I had that conversation with her because I was asking about, in Germany, there are certain leggings for girls that probably are a ripoff of Gymshark or so, or maybe Lululemon, I don't know, where they are then promoting kind of a crunch.
Yes.
Have you ever heard about this? Right?
Yeah,
something like this.
You can get this even with posing trunks now. So
all right.
crunch scrunches the back to make it a little bit more tapered to like show things off.
Yeah,
in a more
and
favorable
also
way.
that there's not that kind of that stitch on the between the butt cheeks. It's kind of like just as with most leggings probably, right? And also then you have leggings that really push up the glutes into a position where then the glutes appear bigger. It's kind of like a push-up bra, just for the glutes. And I was actually then asking her because I wanted to hear her opinion, because I've seen a certain type of pants being worn at my gym. And those girls, to be also there, sorry to say this, to be very frank, I can say with a very, very high certainty that the glutes that they are presenting and demonstrating in those pants aren't the glutes that are being presented and being worn in real life. They are squeezing themselves into kind of a cheat package that is cheating to the outside, and pretending to be something that it isn't. It really sometimes looks as if that person has gone through a Brazilian butt lift surgery. Honestly, that's how crazy it sometimes looks. Like this, looks absolutely crazy. And I was asking her, like, hey, have you experienced with those type of pants? And then we actually came to talk about when I was wearing leggings, and that is actually quite comfortable.
Do you still wear them?
No.
No.
Now,
why did you stop?
I don't know. Times change, I would
Got
say.
to stay up with the latest fashion trend.
Yeah, the thing is, funny enough, Steve, I was actually, do you remember the time when I said like skinny jeans forever?
Yeah, I know you. Yeah.
Right. And I still have the ones from Legend London, and
Same.
I like to wear them, but I am now at a point where I'm even wearing some looser jeans that I haven't done.
I wear baggy jeans.
Mate, I haven't worn kind of looser jeans in like 16, 17, 20 years or something like this. And times change. You're getting older. You want to wear actually something that is more comfortable and not just like pretending to be more comfortable just to justify wearing it. And also that is a little bit more practical. And I don't really think most of the time those leggings are practical or as comfortable as kind of loose sports pants.
Yeah, oversized everything is basically the way I go from now. Like baggy jeans, oversized tops. That's the way I like to go. But yeah, the skinny. I actually might have got rid of my skinny jeans from Legend London, or gave to charity rather, because I can't wear them. Like they're not comfortable around the crotch. That's the place, and I get super hot when they're skin tight. I don't like that sensation. So I have my straight leg versions, but I don't have a like really tight ones.
Yeah, they have the spray on jeans, which are way too tight.
They're leggings, basically. Yeah.
Yes, uncomfortably tight. Luckily, I only had one pair of those. The other ones are a little bit looser, especially like the blue jeans ones. It's kind of the same size of the black ones I have, but the black ones are definitely tighter than the blue ones, which is nice, right? The unfortunate thing is, it's not just when it's getting warm, Steve, it's also when it's getting cold. I'm freezing so much more in those kind of jeans that are a little bit looser. And this has to do, of course, with airflow in between.
I'm trying to think what I have now got a preference in terms of bottoms at the gym. It's like not shorts, like really short, but I want them not so they're covering the knee, but so they're a bit above the knee, so they're showing a bit of quad. So it's not like especially this sounds really bad because I have bigger arms, especially if I'm wearing a vest and then I'm wearing shorts that just show my calves. I think my calves look better than they did because they've definitely grown, but still I look like a chicken legs guy, right? Who just focuses on arms. So I want them to show off a bit of quad, but not so they're like all the way up. That's my preference for shorts.
The majority of my pants that I'm wearing to the gym, or just also here outside as well. I think it looks good, especially because I'm wearing those, I don't know what they are called, the knee height socks, those very classical ones. Here, just take a look. Yeah. I can't do this with my hip. Maybe I need to do it with the right side. Like these, right? And
just normal socks, basically, yeah.
Pull them up. They are a little bit longer, right? Up to calf height. If you wear those with kind of shorter pants, it actually looks very, very good. And also, it shows off that you do something at least.
This is the improvement season fashion podcast for you now, from two people who have I like to think I can be okay with fashion sense, but
I think that you have more fashion sense than I do, or at least you have the desire to spend more time, thinking about it.
I was like, Charlotte, I think I'm just going to chuck it all, like anything that I haven't worn in like 2 years, chuck it out. And then like restart a wardrobe where I've actually like now I would always buy the cheapest socks, the cheapest underwear, everything. I'm like, I bought some, actually speaking of Lululemon, bought some of their pants recently. And I was like, where have these been all my life? These are amazing. I need to just chuck all my old pants and just buy, I'd say pants, I mean like boxers. I was like, these are great. So I've just suddenly realized I can afford to buy not the cheapest Primark like versions of things.
I had the same conversation with one of my old friends who is at our age as well, and he is he's the owner of a media production company. And he said he's now investing a little bit more in his fashion because he was same as us, wearing a lot of casual stuff, but more so if you were to categorize it, not really the look that you would imagine that a mid-30-year-old would wear. You know, a little bit still kind of childish. Do you know the meme with Steve Buscemi where he wears that cap backwards with a skateboard in his hand? And then
I can imagine
is in high school, but he looks like Steve Buscemi just obviously looks, right? And says like, hello, fellow kids, you know, but he's obviously already kind of 40 or 50 years old, just wearing kind of what he thinks cool kids wear these days. This is kind of what I sometimes look like, and he sometimes looks like it as well. And he started investing a little bit more into kind of more mature casual wear, and he spends a little bit more money on it. And he said that this is just much, much nicer. And especially when you are older, you don't need to change your wardrobe every year or so, you know? And if you're probably investing a little bit more money into that, you are probably going to wear it for the next 5 to 10 years, I would assume.
Yeah, I much prefer buying something. I've had that with some of these like the t-shirt I'm wearing here that survive like 10, 20 washes rather than having to like, again, I don't like buying things often. So it's better to buy something that then I can just hold on to that's going to last. But yeah, what an interesting discussion. I guess this is our age showing a little bit. I don't know.
No, absolutely. But it's also, I mean, when it comes, because we touched on gym wear as well. And I think some people are thinking about that as well, because you are spending a lot of time at the gym. And I want to, of course, feel comfortable there as well. If I were to wear what I was wearing kind of 7-ish kind of years ago, like very, very short pants or kind of leggings, I wouldn't really feel comfortable, to be honest.
Actually, that's something talking about things for the gym. You may have seen it, but people on our members site may have seen it as well. I did a vlog basically reviewing a new gym bag that I purchased. At the time, I'd only had it maybe a week, but it's been, I don't know, I've had it for a good month now. It's the most I've ever spent on a gym bag. I always just use like cheap gym bags in the past or whatever. But this purchase has been great. It's like elevated my well-being in terms of like, I use the bag every day. I go to the gym every day and it holds everything I need. It's high quality, and I'm just like, oh, that was such a good purchase. It's from Lululemon as well, because they're expensive, but the quality is worth the cost, I think, in most cases, in my experience. It has like its own pocket for my for my squat shoes, everything. So
I think you could make the same argument for gym equipment in general. Like,
yes,
if you have a home gym, for example, instead of going with the cheapest options, cheapest machines, cheapest cable tower or cable stack, go with something solid where all right, also, if something happens, I have some warranty, for example, and I can immediately get it changed. And you're saving yourself the hassle of just like setting it up, building it up, breaking down several times. Because I do remember the time when I was having that spinning bike in my old apartment, Steve, when I wasn't together with Katie yet. I was ordering that spinning bike twice, and 2 times it was actually malfunctioned. So I needed to send it back. And it's a spinning bike. It's not just like I'm ordering it via DHL or something like this. It was, of course, a logistics company that's then calling you, scheduling things, and they are only sending it to outside of your doorstep. They are not actually carrying it up the stairs. And I was living on the 2nd floor, and during that time, often my roomie wasn't at home, so I needed to actually carry that entire fucking thing up the stairs myself, setting it up, only then to figure out that it was once again broken. So tearing it down, calling that company, scheduling it again with a logistics company, and it happened twice. And it was such a pain in the ass. And it was during a time where I couldn't afford a better spinning bike. And if I could do that, I would definitely spend much more money, because also knowing with my treadmill that I have at home, I've purchased that one in November 2020. I do remember this due to COVID and all that kind of stuff. November 2020. And ever since then, I'm using this one daily at least once. And if you're using a device like that often, you can also easily justify, I think, spending a little bit more money.
Yeah, I think you get what you pay for holds in many cases. I will say one case that it maybe doesn't. This is the way my brain works. So I got a new iPhone because my contract ran out, and then I was like, I need a cover for it, and I was like, I was really pleased with the last case that I got, but it takes like 2 weeks or something to come because it's from France. It's like a Vegeta personalized one. And then I started doing some research, and I was like, man, there's like silicone covers on Amazon for like £5. This one was costing me £50 or something. And I was like, do I really need to spend that much? Are the cases that different? And I just started going through Reddit posts where it was like, phone cases are a scam.
Yeah.
Like they just get you to spend money and say there's all these like extra insurances or whatever. But if the phone's going to break, it's going to break with or without a case. And so I got this cheap one for like £5. I was like, it's been amazing. I'm just like, it's just as good as the other case. It does everything I need it to. Man, so kind of thinking about where you spend your money sometimes also.
The problem with Amazon, without going too much down that rabbit hole, because of course we want to talk about training and nutrition and all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to the product quality on Amazon, and I don't know how it is in other countries, but I would very much assume it's kind of the same. Lots of people are abusing the drop shipping kind of business style, where they are then buying in bulk a certain product in China, for example. It doesn't need to be China, but mostly because they are such a big country that produces in mass those kind of things. You can buy it in bulk there and just put your own brand on it, and then create some own unique pictures and put it up on Amazon. And even if the product quality is absolute garbage, you just need to sell it for a good profit, a certain amount of time. And then if you have a bad reputation, you don't really care, because then you create a new product, a new brand, and set up the same kind of scheme. And Amazon, unfortunately, is full of that garbage. Certain products you can actually look up there are being sold just as different company names. And they even have the same pictures. And that happens so often. And there are certain things where I don't really care about this. For example, I don't know, some kind of kitchen gadget or so. I don't really care. However, what I found to be the case is for reliable technological things and gadgets, I'm not buying on Amazon anymore. So for example, a fuse for a motorbike or so, I would never purchase there simply because it's a safety thing as well. And they are not reliable. They are often not being tested enough and all that kind of stuff. And that is where quality on Amazon has suffered tremendously because there was a niche. People wanted to make a lot of profit in a short and easy amount of time. And of course, people are then starting to abuse this, right? As with so many other things in life. And this is why with certain products, we have decreased our consumption over on Amazon by a long shot. And I'm actually quite happy about this because many things were not really carefully thought out purchases. It's just, I need this. Let's go on Amazon. Let's order it. If it's shitty, I don't really care. Right? And I don't really want to be that person who just consumes without thinking about the potential consequences that it also has. And rather than also there, spend now a little bit more money and know what I get instead of kind of shitty products that I need to buy them twice or 3 times.
I don't know if you know better than I do, but I tend to use reviews quite heavily. Like I'll look and read reviews to make sure that they seem not just like if they're bots, it's very obvious. But if they look like real reviews and there's thousands of them, I tend to be a bit more like.
But even that's often bought, right? And that's the problem because it's so easy to buy these kind of reviews. If then the profit margin on your product is so high, you just need to sell it often enough so that you can then also purchase those kind of reviews. And many, many people go off by those reviews, same as I. Right? I look at the reviews. I think even that Amazon ranks you higher the more positive reviews you have. And thus...
You can filter by that.
All right. But if there are a lot of positive reviews and the number of reviews is high as well, you're more likely to purchase that product over others. And if you just sell enough products and you have a profit margin of like, I don't know, 700, 800% or even more, and people then at some point realize that it's just fake reviews, and after a while it increases that the 1-star rating, you don't really care. Once again, for you, it's only about selling it once to one person only, do it often enough, leave, break down the brand, and create a new one with a different kind of product.
My phone case has been all right, though.
Totally. And that's what I mean, right? Certain products, and you can also there make the argument that certain products are probably manufactured in the same in the same factory as other more expensive products.
Yeah.
Right. So, and it's hard for you to actually determine what those products are.
Yeah, but I know what you mean because I bought this thinking this is going to come tomorrow. If it's no good, then I can replace it with a more expensive one. Yeah. And then it's like, I mean, it's £6, but I agree with you. I don't like being that person that is like just over consuming essentially. Like it's just waste then at that point, which sucks.
Yeah. And I mean, we have kids at home and you may want to consider also things such as, what carcinogenic fabrics and also material that they are then using that is not being regulated, for example, in the EU. And you can still purchase those because it's such a quick running business. And if they are then being, I don't know, getting some kind of fine, they are already gone, for example. So what we did once was purchasing kind of a very cheap camera, and you can feel on the rubber that they are using that, I don't know what it's called on English. It's kind of Weichmacher. So when something is being softened, most of the time it's quite carcinogenic. And you can really feel that one isn't the material that you're typically having in your hands. That something like this is then being sold for kids is quite questionable. But once again, I don't think it's the fault necessary of Amazon. It's more so the fault of the consumer, and also that they have opened up that gray area where people can sell those kind of things. It's the same with other online stores that have risen up to fame quite quickly, such as Temu. Have you heard about those?
No.
Or something like Shein, fast fashion, where it's super, super cheap, right? it is hard to regulate those kind of things because the market is moving so quickly, and regulation, especially on the EU Parliament, is a very, very slow process, and it takes years for regulation to catch up. And I'm not saying that regulation is always a good thing, but especially when it comes to those kind of things, I think then you as a consumer are responsible for maybe thinking twice or three times about purchasing these kind of products when you want to put your maybe own health or the health of your kids at jeopardy.
Yeah, I guess it's actually to relate this to the fitness world, because a lot of this discussion I think actually applies to like online coaching, because similar to just the web, like internet in general, like it's so easy to start a business and start selling something online nowadays. Like it doesn't take a lot to be able to do that. And like you said, that could be completely unregulated to some extent. Like it's going to be hard to regulate that because, I mean, I don't know what even goes involved with that, but I can't see how easy that could be to regulate. But it's the same with online coaching. It's not regulated at all. And there are people with millions of followers who could be selling programs or coaching. And it's like, you don't know what you're getting. And even though it's not the same way, you're still putting your health at risk, really. Because if you're getting coached by someone who isn't really coaching you, or they don't have a good education, they could put you through something that you adhere to that puts your health at risk. I don't know, an excessively low calorie diet for an extended period of time, or training that is just like completely not appropriate for you as a person. And I think it probably does come back to the consumer at the end of the day. Like, be aware as a consumer, do your research.
Another good example could be something like supplement industry, Steve.
Oh yeah.
Right. I mean, yes, there are certain products that are probably regulated here in the EU, or for example in the US, that are being monitored much, much more thorough. However, you can also easily get supplementation, especially if you are someone who doesn't really know better. And I have my own experience with that, because back in 2013 or 14, I was actually getting my hands on a whey protein powder, and I don't know where I've ordered that from. And that was the only time in my entire life that I had an allergic reaction to food.
Oh.
Yeah, and it was a super, super cheap one. I don't even know whether it had some kind of fancy brand or something like this. It was just a very cheap whey protein. And you don't really know, especially as a naive starter, what's really inside there. And you don't even know it in the bigger products as well. Often we hear from those people who are then kind of, I don't know, doing a little bit of digging and research that, for example, protein is underdosed, for example, and that it's then a blend instead of a pure protein isolate or something like this, right? There have been shocking revelations over the past couple of years. So one that really comes to mind is Optimum Nutrition. From the outside, it looks very much like a very solid brand. The way that they present themselves, they are on the market since a very long time, and they have been one of those, I think, underdosing the whey protein powders as well, you know? And you can always fall victim to that, and you never really know what you get, especially when it comes to getting your supplements from, for example, Amazon. There's so many ones. You look through it, super expensive, and you have never heard of the brand before. And I bet that many people purchase their supplements from those brands, and you don't actually know what it is that you're putting inside your body.
Yeah, I think it was Turkesterone is one of the ones that comes to mind, where one, it's like completely novel, and mechanistically for humans, it doesn't really make sense. It's like a plant steroid. With Ben Escrow on the podcast, he talked about it quite a lot. But in the recent study, actually, that Eric Helms has been talking about a lot, it was the presence and quantity of botanical ingredients with purported performance-enhancing properties in sports supplements. And it was none of the testosterone products contained even 1% of the labeled dosage. So their advice, and I think this is great advice, when it comes to supplements with novel ingredients, it's often valuable to be a late adopter and lean into products that are independently certified by third-party organizations. But so few companies actually do that in terms of the third-party organization testing, because it's expensive. And then consumers, even me, probably the same for you, Pascal. Like, I don't, like when I see there's a third-party tested one, but it's, I don't know, 25% more expensive than this other one sold by the same company. I know My Protein do it. Like, I'm like, oh, I'm just going to, like, it's just whey protein, right? Like, surely. Or you can buy Create Pure versus creatine.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever bought Create Pure. Like, I've just generally bought creatine. I'm like, I guess you're risking, it's probably a small risk for creatine, because I think generally it's probably all right, but you're risking something, I guess, being contaminated there.
100%. 100%. And I think I don't really want to really make that example because I think it's a quite absurd example. But there's obviously a fentanyl crisis in the US. And many people die of an overdose simply because the threshold of overdosing is such a marginal one. And that's why people are just like shooting themselves to death quite quickly. And you never really know when the dealer, for example, or the person who mixed it, right, who did a blend, used too much, and you can't really blend it to the same amount all of the time, because in one batch there can be much more fentanyl than in the other batch, for example, even though these were two powders kind of blend together. Right? It's not that they are mixing always 50-50. And it's kind of probably the same when it comes to, for example, now, people who are using anabolic steroids. I think it's the minority who are listening to our podcast, but they are purchasing the products from black markets. I think there's a very high likelihood that it's nearly the same thing with certain products. I would very much assume that certain products are easier to mix and easier to get right. But one that comes to my mind is DNP, right? Because we are talking about milligrams, and it's very quickly done to consume a deathly high amount of DNP, especially because they're also consuming it when it just touches your skin. And there's one person that both of us know from who passed away a couple of years back, Steve. And I heard somewhere that his death was being caused by, for example, DNP. I don't know the context behind it, though. I don't know how much he consumed, whether it was by accident or not. But I think, just to bring it back to supplementation, I think even though that the lethalness of maybe misdosing things isn't really as present, I think a little bit of warranty is still warranted, because a little bit of cautiousness is still warranted, simply because you yourself, you're just consuming it, and you yourself, you're not overseeing things. And also the regulation, I don't really know how much of a regulation there is in that field yet.
Do you not see the progress you would like? Are you sick of writing your own programs? Or perhaps you need some accountability in order to stick with a plan? Then it's time to start working with us. We at Revive Stronger offer a truly personalized coaching service. You'll get more than just an email with some macros or random cookie cutter program. With Revive Stronger, you will be the center of our attention. You will receive your own fully individualized training protocol alongside a customized nutritional strategy. We created the coaching around your needs, wants, personal preferences, and your own unique lifestyle. Every single week, we delve into your program in order to make appropriate adjustments so that we get the most out of your time and the best possible outcome. We help both female and male athletes to seriously change their body composition by adding more muscle mass and decreasing fat tissue. No matter if you're a competitive bodybuilder or just want to look better, if you need help with your progress and taking your physique to the next level, our coaching is for you. It's time to make a change. Sign up today and let's revive stronger.
Yeah, I think it's very unregulated. Like, you even hear it. I think I had the two guys on the podcast a while ago talking about going from a natural to enhanced, Josh Bridgman and Thomas Moore. And I think we touched on like whether or not they've ever had bad experiences with basically like dodgy gear or whatever. But I think almost anyone you speak to who's been on gear has had some sort of experience with something not being quite right. Underdosed or overdosed or not what they thought it was, and that scares the shit out of me. Like, I think a lot of like naturals who have stayed natural because they're like, that risk is not something I want to get involved with. I think we'd be ignorant not to think about it with our own supplements that we're taking that quote unquote are natural, but they could be contaminated too. Maybe not as lethally, But I mean, you could be taking something that's a banned substance by accident. Like that has happened in the past. So it's definitely made me look at my supplementation and be like, if I'm taking things like the less mixed it is, good idea. The less novel it is, a good idea. Take like creatine monohydrate, whey, like things that are very well known and well established, fish oils, stuff like this, and do my best to purchase from like quality sources. And if it can be third party tested, try and get that one. I'm not the best at that just yet. I probably want to look at where I'm getting all, like I'm getting zinc, magnesium, and just see, I don't know how much they're going to be contaminated versus like a testosterone, you know, probably not the same way. They probably are more likely to be what they say they are. But I think many people think the supplement industry is like heavily regulated. But I'm going to change pace here, because I wanted to bring this up just because it blew my mind talking about steroids. So I don't know if you know Michael Daboul. He's a classic IFBB pro. I think he goes to the Mr. Olympia. He may place like top 10.
I'm quite certain that I've seen him.
He comes in shredded, super broad. He hasn't got the best structure for classic in particular, I think. But the reason I bring him up,
no, absolutely,
is my mind was blown. I saw he was at a UK. I think it was Two Bros show. I want to get that right. Yeah, not PCA. It was Two Bros, and he got basically beaten the shit out of by 4 guys backstage. And this was more than likely down to him on his stories, kind of presenting that show in not a great light, basically saying the lighting isn't amazing. Yeah, it's really expensive. Like compared to the shows in the US, it's much more affordable. The stage and everything's better. I think they just do a better job in the US. These guys need to in a sense, up their game. I think very reasonable comments. I've done a Two Bros show. Actually, I'm worried now. I don't want to say too much. I don't want to get beaten the shit out of either. But I wasn't overly impressed. I did a YouTube video kind of presenting my feelings and thoughts about that show, just because I felt rushed on stage. I didn't feel like we got our due diligence in time. There was a lot of hanging around. I just didn't feel like I was prioritized as an athlete. But he went backstage and got beaten the shit out of. He was in A&E because he had his whole face was kind of like bruised and beaten up, and his eye was whether or not he had a problem with his eye. But it was just mind-boggling that it happened. Like, it's one thing if it happened to me, right? I'm like a nobody, but he's literally like a top 6 Mr. Olympian, like classic BB, like bodybuilding. Like, that's wild that could even happen to someone like that.
I don't even know what to say.
No, I just thought I was looking for newsworthy things in our space, and I was like, that's newsworthy.
Because I'm just taking it as you describe. 6 guys beating him up.
4
guys.
But still.
I don't know what happened, of course. I don't know if there's any kind of other context. And it's up for speculation whether there is or not, right? But the fact alone that something like this happened is just shocking enough.
Yeah.
Independent of what really happened. Let's just say Daboul was very annoying character who's impolite and all that kind of stuff. I don't really think that it's a justification to then beat someone up, like 4 guys beating him up. I don't know. What can be so bad that 4 guys see the need of beating someone up?
Yeah, it's crazy to me. It just made me embarrassed to be like, that happened in the UK. Like, he came here with, I don't know, he had clients or something at that show, and then that happens to him. It's just like, but also presents like a bit of a strange thing of, you almost want to be careful what you say online to some extent. Like, it's scary, right? Like, he's presenting that discouraging view of that show to his 142,000 followers. Like, that's a lot of people to potentially see that, and I can see that puts a negative light on that show. I'm not saying it absolutely isn't right, but it's just like a scary thing to even think about. But the other actually news is the IFBB have announced they're investing heavily, and the Natty News guys reviewed this on their podcast. They're coming into the natural scene, which we knew about, but they kind of presented the rules and regulations of what it meant to be natural. Yeah. And the thing that everyone picked up on was, I don't know if you've seen it, but I'm going to get you to guess, how many years drug-free do you have to be considered natural in an IFBB I don't know, one of their presented shows.
If you're asking like that, I have to assume that it's something quite ridiculous. So it can't be lifelong. It can't be something like 10 years, such as other organizations. I would very much assume that it has something to do. If it's that ridiculous, it must be something like maximum 5 or at least 1 to 2 years.
So you're in the range. Right. 3 years. 3 years drug-free, and you're considered natural at that point.
You can't call that drug-free. You're maybe then drug-free for that initial moment, but I don't really think that that's the understanding of drug-free in natural bodybuilding. You can blast your ass off for like 20 years, right? 20 years or something like this. Blast your ass off, be humongous, step off, and you're probably still outshining most of the natural bodybuilders there. Right? Yeah, and you can call yourself kind of drug-free.
Yeah.
If you really think about it that way, it becomes quite ridiculous.
It just, I don't even know what to, like, in some ways I'm like, oh, this is a good thing because true drug-free bodybuilders, natural bodybuilders will be like that's a joke. Why would I compete there? I want to go against, like, again, most federations have an 8 to 10 year drug-free rule, which I think is a good amount of time, because a lot of the time people who have used, like, haven't thought it out fully, and if they've been off for that long, then it's a good washout period. So I think that's pretty good. I understand why they have that length of time, but also why it isn't necessarily longer than that too, because I don't know if that's fair in every case. But at the same time, like, it's other people are going to look at that, and then I don't know, it just again, all the people that are like, there's no truly natural bodybuilders, like, what a joke, blah blah blah. It just brings all of those comments on as well, because now they see these IFBB natural bodybuilders or whatever, who maybe have been on, like, you know, blasting for 10 years and then off for 3, and it's like, it kind of makes natural bodybuilding look laughable in a sense.
That's true. And I think that you brought up a very, very good point there as well. In the end, I think if you really decide to go down the natural path, then make it such that it isn't even worthwhile to take drugs, but also, in my personal opinion, excuses the people that did some maybe irrational or maybe intentional decisions earlier in their career and earlier in their life, but have stopped using already decades ago. So just as an example, we are quite more impressionable. We can't really calculate risk that well when we are younger, especially males can't, simply because the brain isn't fully developed by a certain age. So it's much more likely that we are falling into the trap of doing something that we later may even regret. And I think that everyone can relate to that, who is now kind of in their 30s or 40s. There's probably a couple of things that you did when you were younger that you do regret, even though that in that given situation, it was a good idea. So I think it is still acceptable to not have a lifelong ban, but to have something like 10 years, because 10 years is a freaking long time. Right? Also, 10 years without any kind of drugs is a freaking long time. While you may not claim lifelong natural status, I think it also doesn't really incentivize abusing that system, because you would need to then, rationally speaking, say like, okay, I make that decision now, taking the drugs, but I want to compete in 10 years from now. So right now I'm 18, so let's just take the drugs up until I'm 23, fully blast, and then I'm able to compete at the age of 33 as a natural athlete. No one thinks like this. No one, right? And that's why I'm also under the opinion that those people shouldn't really be punished if they have made some certain decisions when they were younger. But also, you don't really want to incentivize people or put people off if you just lower that threshold too much. That's just my take.
No, I agree. It's just wild to think like a Derek Lunsford, the current Mr. Olympia, in 3 years could see you at a natural bodybuilding show.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You could be standing on stage with him. Not that would ever happen, but it's just like, if you put it in those sort of terms, it's just like, mine kind of blows. So yeah, it's just it's crazy to think that that could be the case. And
it'd
just be interesting to see how it goes.
What's your thought as to why they've made like 3 years? Of course, this is just pure speculation, and I'm just asking for your thoughts and opinions, Steve. Why someone can think that this may be a good idea? Do you think that it's not very well thought through, or because it doesn't really seem rational to me?
No, it's funny. The immediate thing it made me think of is when, like, someone will go, an interviewer, whatever, they go to a kind of person who clearly on gear, looks like they're on gear, and goes like, "Are you natty or not?" And they're like, "Oh, I'm natural now." And they're like, "Oh, so you're not taking anything?" And they're like, "Oh, no, I'm on like, don't know, 200 milligrams of TRT." And you're like, "Oh, right. So you consider that natural?" It's like, do enhanced guys just think natural is like taking small doses or something? So 3 years of nothing, supernatural, right? So you're definitely a natty if you're taking nothing for 3 years. So I don't know if that came through people's heads. I doubt it. I think it probably has been well thought through, because I don't think they're well thought out in terms of how they promote things and do things, I think, generally, from what I gather. And they haven't gone into this half-hearted from the looks of things. They're looking to expand pretty rapidly. And it makes me wonder if it's a financial move so that they can encourage more people to get into it. And in fact, weirdly enough, I don't know if this sounds super weird. Does that encourage people who are currently on to be like, "Oh, it was only 3 years till I can compete"? And like, maybe it encourages some people to come off who are currently on. And
I would
could
very
that
much
be a net
assume,
positive?
I would very much assume that there are certain people who would do this. But purely, and this is of course also here just speculating and making up assumptions, which is of course not fair to then certain individuals, but I'm just throwing it out right now. And that is because they haven't been as competitive as they hoped for in enhanced or untested bodybuilding, but because they are now that big, they can have a clear shot at natural bodybuilding.
Yeah, or like you said, it wasn't a well thought through decision to go on, but then they realized they want to compete, but they can't compete naturally because of the 8 to 10 year rules. And then now they're like, "Oh, maybe I can come off and actually I can compete in 3 years." And it could
very well be that they needed to also be a little bit more competitive. So the organization itself, they couldn't just like copy what the WMBF is doing and run alongside that, because it's kind of course conflicting, and it's much harder than to be competitive, because it's kind of first mover advantage. The WMBF has been around for such a long time. They are very well established. So how do you set yourself apart? How many people and how many athletes does the WMBF exclude due to their criteria when it comes to drug usage? And how can we benefit from actually taking those on board? And maybe this is also where this is coming from.
Yeah, it's kind of offering a market for an individual who's maybe like it's finding a gap in the market in a sense, like you're suggesting. Yeah,
like
it's funny.
You can't compete in the WMBF for the next couple of years, but hey, you can already compete at our place, and maybe because often when people are doing something once, they most of the time stick with a certain organization or a certain product even. So Apple, I think, is a great example of that. Once you decide to go with Apple products, you often stick with Apple, because the transition over to different products is a little bit more inconvenient. And most of the people don't really like this. They like to know what it is that they get. Maybe this is also then where this comes into play of like, hey, we are able to get a lot of people who aren't really allowed to compete in natural bodybuilding right now, but want to compete, who have come off certain drugs, who have now a massive gap in between, where it's like they don't have any kind of alternatives other than continuing to do untested shows. But what it is that but often they don't really want to do untested shows anymore. And here we are offering you an alternative option. And this could very well be that this is the reason why they lowered the entry level for taking drugs.
Yeah, and I think it comes back to what we kind of talked at the start, is like, as a natural bodybuilder and why we do these like why we compete and what we think about in terms of who we want to support, I think comes into that. So like, again, like where you put your dollar, where you put your pound, your euro, whatever, will speak volumes. So if you want to continue to support the feds that you think are supporting our message as natural bodybuilders and the reason we stick down that path, I'd say try and do that versus jumping on to theirs. But the hard thing will be, I imagine they've got a lot more money behind them as an organization, and so the incentives are going to be far greater. But I know for me, like the chance of me winning a natural show that has a 10-year drug-free rule isn't super high. So let alone going into one with a 3-year. And obviously I want to be competitive, and I don't do it only for the result. So I think go with the organizations that have been supporting natural bodybuilding for the longest time versus what looks like more like a money grab, I would say. Feels like
it could also very well be that they want to offer also, once again, that the entry level is a little bit lower, but at the same time, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, I think that there's a little bit more prestige to it if someone is able to call themselves an IFBB pro rather than a WMBF pro. This is not to sound condescending towards the WMBF, but I think it's just one of those things. When someone is capable of calling themselves an IFBB pro, there's a little bit more weight to it. I would at least assume that's the reality in bodybuilding.
I think it's just bodybuilding as a whole. The IFBB is the creme de la creme. So it's like if you can get that pro title, the WMBF pro is probably the creme de la creme within natural bodybuilding. But it's like, wow, if you can get one with the IFBB, like a Kendall can, like hat off to you. You are like incredible, and you are stand out in that sense. Yeah. So it now makes me think, are they going to like have, okay, so there's this, call it a half natty fed, 3 years drug free, then you're going to have like a 5 years drug free fed, and then have like a 6 years. And then like, it's just like, oh, where does it end?
Yeah. I don't think so. I really, now the more that we talk about it, the more I tend to believe that they just want to offer a different product and benefit from where there's still a niche, right? Because people will definitely take advantage of that. Also because of the brand name, because of the recognition, because of the incentive of getting that title, and also, of course, the production quality and all that kind of stuff. And while we find it utterly ridiculous, I think that there are a lot of people who don't even think about this.
And I sometimes hope that it's a gateway, kind of like a gateway drug, like it's a gateway to natural bodybuilding. Yeah. So because they have a bigger name, bigger presence, some people might not even be aware that there's natural bodybuilding. And then they see this through the IFBB and they're like, and then maybe they compete with them and they're like, was that really natural bodybuilding? And then they search a bit more and they come across a WMBF or a UKDFBA, what have you, an OCB. And that might help. I don't know. We'd have to see. Exactly.
That's what I wanted to say. We have to see what time will bring towards natural bodybuilding in specific here, and what comes out of it. Because right now, I think that there are definitely some pros to it, but also some cons. And then we just have to see how things develop. And it could turn out that it's a net positive for natural bodybuilding overall, because it's being presented in a much different light. And also because how many people outside really do understand and know what natural bodybuilding is. Mate, we just had a friend of Katie's staying over here, and she had no idea that there's a difference between natural bodybuilding and bodybuilding. I needed to explain to her what this actually means, because she was under the opinion that everyone who's doing bodybuilding competitively is also then taking anabolic steroids, and that there's only something like this.
Yeah, it's a shame. I see it now and then spoken about as if that is the only route. Like, again, I see this is like reels on Instagram. Someone will interview a bodybuilder and be like, are you natty or not? And they're like, I'm a competitive bodybuilder. Of course I'm on drugs. It's like, but there is natural, like drug-free bodybuilding as well, right? Like, don't just completely ignore that. And I think it just comes back down to that lack of awareness and the size. And I think we just have to build up probably the bigger, more popular, well-known naturals who are out there. Like a Jeff Nippard is a great example. Like,
yes.
He's got millions of subscribers over on YouTube. Like, he is very popular. And him being like a bit of at the forefront of natural bodybuilding, I think is great. So we just need more people like that. And I think there are people coming up, especially now like social media is a bigger part of our lives, and there's bigger influences there. So just continue to spread that message and see how it goes. But I'm going to change the script again. We haven't got long left, but you had a tattoo this weekend. Are you back into the gym yet? Or?
No, yes and no. So yesterday I went back, did legs because I was getting my arm done, as you can see. And then I wanted to actually do my training session here today. But due to kind of the arm, the elbow area, it's kind of a little bit harder to heal up. And I could still feel that it's right now, it's still kind of oozing a little bit. And I wasn't ready to go through an upper body session. So I needed to unfortunately postpone the upper body session here today. And then I take it as it comes tomorrow. I didn't really plan on extending kind of the off time simply because over the holiday that I had 1.5 weeks ago, I was already not training for like 5 days. And I was just thinking that I can get away with 3 to 4 days of no training, which is for most people even just a normal kind of training week, right? When they are having like 4 days of training throughout the week, they have like 3 rest days, and most of the time that's totally fine. It doesn't really throw you off too much, and it's a little bit unfortunate. But this is something that you just have to take as it comes. And to be honest, it can always be something else, right? Now I'm unfortunately in a position where it's kind of self-induced things that keep me from the gym, and not self-inflicted things such as injuries and all that kind of stuff. And this also then brings me to the point of we are getting older. Like honestly, with the hip and all that kind of stuff. So last couple of days, not last couple of days, but before the tattoo appointment, I was actually sitting on my motorbike for the first time in 6 months. Got off it and I had stiff hips, so a stiff left hip. And while I can live in denial, that is just like, oh no, that's nothing, which you have been doing when you were younger. I think those are unfortunately also symptoms of getting older. I mean, I'm 36, which doesn't really sound like a hefty age for some, but of course, I have a prehistory for my injury around my hip and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not as resilient anymore as I was when I was younger. And I have to, of course, probably make those, or come to terms with it at least, and then make some modifications, even though that mentally I don't really want to do this. Mentally, I feel like a young self, and I would love to be as agile as I've always been. I probably also need to come to terms with that this isn't going to happen moving forward. And also furthermore, there are other things in life that are happening and taking place, such as taking care of kids when they are sick, right? Going to the doctors with them. Other obligations, for example, as well. And because of this, you need to just be a little bit more flexible when it comes to still getting your training sessions done if you really want to be committed to that. And that's what I'm trying to do, right? Adjusting when necessary and making the best out of the situation right now. And also furthermore, and then I'm ending my ramble here, those couple of days, are they really going to make that much of a difference? No, especially considering the overarching goals of mine. It's not the same as you, Steve. I can absolutely understand that it would throw a much, much bigger span in the mix for you than it does for me. It's inconvenient. I want to go to the gym. It makes me a little bit not anxious, but a little bit itching. I just want to go to the gym because I want to follow my routine. But other than that, is there really anything bad coming out of it? No, I'm not losing any kind of muscle. I may not make the same amount of progress that I could have made, but at the same time, for what? I'm not aiming to become a bodybuilding pro. I'm not aiming to put on 10 kilograms of muscle in the next couple of years, right? So it's a minor inconvenience at best.
Yeah, and I think, at least the way I always look at those things and the way I assess it with clients and myself is like, the reason it's not an issue for you is because when you can be on point, you're on point.
Yeah.
It's kind of similar to, I don't know, Christmas or your birthday. If there's a few occasions across the year where, yeah, you're not as diligent with your nutrition or what have you as you should be, or not should be, as you could be, it's not an issue if you're nailing it the rest of the time. It's a problem when you're not nailing it the rest of the time, and then these take you even further away from your goals.
Yeah.
But on the topic of your tattoo, it's actually, I'd never really thought about it, because getting my half sleeves, there's not, in terms of healing, it's like once the inflammation's kind of down, you can just get back into the gym because you're not bending at any joints and things like this where it's going to cause a problem. But yeah, when you get like behind a knee or a elbow crease, I can totally see why you don't want to stretch. Or even like if you do your chest, you don't probably want to train like stretching it, or even like biceps, triceps, maybe that could be a bit more impactful. But the half sleeves are like, hey.
Yeah, and to be fair, in the past, I always had like only one motive at a time. It was never really kind of the end, kind of 2-day sessions. This only started with the calves, for example, because of traveling. And then especially with the back, it was kind of a little bit of a different thing. But you're traveling, you want to get as much done as possible.
Yeah.
And normally it's not really an issue if you have kind of motives like you or me in the past had, right? One motive, one character at a time, at a place where it's not really kind of a big issue. Even if it's just kind of here in the dent, it's not that big of a deal, but it's the entire arm, right? So it's a little bit more challenging because the entire arm has more water retention. There's a lot more inflammation going on, lots more swelling. It takes much longer to heal because it was so invasive, right? And because of this then floats into it. And it's also then kind of the very first time, besides also my back, that I'm experiencing something like this, and I can't go straight back into the gym. So for the listeners, don't be discouraged. This is not the norm. Normally, you're not getting like a massive tattoo, and then you can heal this in a matter of like 2 to 3 days enough so that you can go back to the gym. Now, it's a little bit of an unfortunate situation right now, especially surrounding that area. It's just moving the entire time. And it is what it is, right? It won't really happen often anymore in the future, because when the arm is done, I first need to take a break before I'm then getting anything else done. And if you really then sum it up, how often does this happen? Not often. This could have very well been also that I'm ending up getting sick because anything happens, right? And whether it's now a tattoo that needs healing, or I'm out because I have diarrhea at home for several days, in the end, it doesn't really matter. It just requires rest and attention, and then you're going back to the gym.
Yeah, I because last time when I had a double day session on my arm, I realized I never want to do that again, because it's when you just have a single day session, like you said, you can get right back in. If I had a half day session, it probably wouldn't impact training at all. So I think, like you said, if you have to travel, I totally get why you're doing double day sessions. You're traveling far, but I can get back in a day, like there and back in a day on a weekend. It's no issue. But so there's no need for me to stay overnight and do the next day and put myself through like pain and torture and Steve, a longer recovery time for no reason.
All of the last sessions that I did, starting from the calf, have always been 2-day sessions. And let me tell you this, if you can pick and choose of what it is that you prefer and doing, then never really book more than one session or one day. Always, I swear, I'm not over exaggerating. Always I'm sitting there on the first day, towards the end, when it's actually getting pretty much harder, questioning why I was doing that in the first place. And I'm committing to that. Then I get home, get into the hotel room, completely smashed, because you just finished like 7-8 hours of just like needles ramming into your skin. You are completely annihilated, super tired. First night of sleep isn't even great. You get up in the morning, super tired, and you just realize this nightmare is going to repeat another time. And this is, like, mentally speaking, this is super, super challenging. And each and every single time, I kid you not, I question and I doubt why I was doing this in the first place. I think, though, it's probably the same when it comes to females getting pregnant. Like, after the first birth that they are experiencing, like, never again am I going through a pain like this for like 36 hours. And then all of a sudden,
forget
2 years later, second comes around, or maybe even shorter than this for some individuals, you know. And then the third kid comes, for the fourth kid comes, right? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's I don't want to complain because, of course, it is me who decides to go with this.
The only thing I would further the recommendation of just doing one session is most of us like getting tattoos. So like, it's kind of fun and exciting to go get it. So I'm like, if I can actually spread it over longer time, like I used to think get it done as quickly as possible. Now I'm like, if I can spread it, that's actually quite nice also.
I would love if I were to live somewhere close to my tattoo artist. Man, I would love to schedule like this once per month, getting there for like 3 to 4 hours. That would be the dream.
That's almost, this half sleeve was basically that. Because the tattoo artist was a 5-minute walk away.
Man, that would be the dream. The dream.
It was great.
Yeah.
Every deload I just went for a few days. It was like perfect.
Yeah. That would be the dream scenario. And yeah, unfortunately, that's definitely not the case for me.
And I guess on that note, we've been going for an hour, so we should probably call it. I can report a little bit more next week on how the diet's going. I'm not calling it prep. 100%. People are asking me if I'm in prep, and I'm like, hey, I can't call it prep until Cliff calls it prep. But I've been posing a little bit more and getting a little bit more into that mindset, which has been fun and feeling it's so funny. I'll talk about it more next time, but at times I'm feeling quite confident. Other times I'm like, you look like shit.
Oh God. Yeah. Let's remember then to talk about kind of the entire diet right now. Not calling it a prep. The diet that we don't call a prep. Let's put it this way. Next time in depth, and then talk about all of the nuances and think about maybe also already what it is that you really want to touch on and feel like being valuable for the listener, Steve. Yeah.
And if people made it this far, I want to see a comment of Natty in the comments, just to see how many people listened this far on YouTube. So NATTY, Natty, comment if you made it this far.
Perfect.
And guys.
Cheers, guys. Losing weight fast while maintaining muscle mass. Sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? It isn't though. It's reality and we know how to do it. And we will help you achieve this. The Minicut Movement is an 8-week fat loss program to make you lose a huge chunk of fat while maintaining muscle mass at the same time. We will support you from the beginning to the end so that you see the results you would like to and come out of it much stronger. You'll receive a fully automated spreadsheet that is based on your nutritional needs. You can choose between 6 different male and female training templates. Over 30 videos will guide you through each and every single step of the Minicut so that you're getting the most out of your journey and that you always know what to do. But the best thing is that you can start whenever you want. The Minicut Movement is open 24/7. So if you want to learn more or you're ready to sign up, hit the link in the description below. So let's revive stronger together.